Welcome to the Executive Coach Podcast, and this is the podcast where we move from box-ticking busyness to designing spacious and exciting work lives. So today's episode is a little bit different. It's for anyone who has been circling the idea of working with me. I have had a large number of different requests, so I thought it would be cool to put it all together into one episode. And don't worry if you're not thinking of working with me right now, or you already have and you're thinking this isn't relevant. This stuff is still going to be relevant because you might now be considering what's next for you and how you're going to continue to resource and support yourself. So I wanted to create a go-to episode that if you are considering some support, but you're not sure exactly what you need or what working with me looks like, this might help dispel some of that confusion for you, because I know that when people embark on any kind of a self-development program or coaching, they're going to have questions, they're going to have some doubts. Maybe right now you're feeling stuck, or you've reached a point where things look good on paper, but they don't quite feel right, or you're tired of just having to figure it all out by yourself and you want some structure. You also want someone that you trust to help you with that. What I would say is that I work with quite a wide range of clients, and I love that. I don't just want to work with one type of client. What they do have in common, though, is that they're already doing well. They've already done cool things in their work lives and the rest of their lives. But perhaps they've outgrown their first version of success and they're looking to do things differently in the next chapter. They probably have reached a point of frustration one way or another, and they're thinking, right, things can't exactly carry on like this. And it's just starting to feel a little bit hard and heavy to make needle moving progress. So this can include mid to senior level leaders who are in transition, especially those senior leaders who have already achieved a lot. It could be founders who've built something solid, but they need it all to feel more aligned, or now actually they're being asked to really step up into their leadership and they're not exactly sure what that looks like, or they know it's not quite working as well as it could for them. Or it could be independent consultants, practitioners, or people who are making that transition from corporate structured work into more independent lives. Perhaps you've never worked with a coach before, but you just know that something needs to shift. I had a LinkedIn message from somebody recently saying, what do I do, or where do I start if I want to literally overhaul my entire life? So that's what you might be feeling right now. And I know, especially as we enter the final quarter of the year, people do start to get a little bit more reflective. They start to think about what has gone well for them this year, what hasn't perhaps gone as they hoped it would, or has been more difficult than they thought. And that's where they may need that extra support. But wherever you're starting from, there is that thread that you're already fine, but you want to feel more lit up about your life, and you know you're capable of that, but you know that you need somebody and something and the right structure for it. But often the cookie cutter stuff doesn't feel quite right for you because you've got too many ifs and buts. And that is specifically the way that I have created my programs. Coaches believe in things being completely and utterly tailored to you. So I am never going to do a one size fits all approach in my programs. So let me just start, before I get into the real specifics for those of you who are literally on the verge of working with me. Let me just name a few of the things that stop people from getting the support that they need. They ask themselves questions like, do I really need this? Now, if you are that high achiever who's always managed to do things by themselves, that includes the way that you manage things on the home front, the way that you manage things at work. You're somebody that's very independent. And so you're not necessarily somebody who thinks that it's cool or has been raised in a way that makes it okay to ask for help. That is totally fair. But if you're currently at a stage of life where you're too busy to make the space required to think about your goals and vision and start chipping away at them, then this kind of support is not indulgent. It's just a reflection of your current time reality. Otherwise, you're going to end up pedaling hard in a direction that might look good on paper, but in a few years' time won't have got you closer to your dreams. What I want is to put that same amount of effort that you're very capable of doing into that aligned right direction. A small realignment now saves you from so much of that bigger overhaul later. I'm not here for those overhauls where we kind of chuck everything out the window. I always want to find the effortless way of doing these things. And often that is just starting sooner. And I know that personally for me, people will say to me, wow, you've achieved a lot. You've got where you wanted to get to. I just started early. I questioned everything early. I got access to a coach early. That was my big turning point. Because I became a young manager, I was given a coach early on when I was at KPMG. And that was my sort of starting point for all the transformation. It's when I did my first vision. I'm still eternally grateful to that coach who helped me to make my first transitions. So yes, the earlier you start, the easier it is, because we all put the same amount of effort in. Ultimately, we're all going to work roughly the same amount of hours each week and all of that. But let's make sure it's in the right direction. The next bit is, I don't know exactly what I want, and therefore I'm not ready for coaching. And I do understand that, because I know that some kinds of coaching really put all the pressure on you and make you your own best expert and keep putting the questions back to you. What do you want? What do you feel? Now, I know that can be frustrating, because if you're a high achiever, you've done the bits that you can do by yourself, and now you want some really high quality inputs. And that is exactly the point of my Vision Unblocked and Vision Builder programs. Everybody comes to it from different contexts and stages. The structure, though, takes you through your journey to craft your unique vision. So what you walk away with is something that nobody else is going to have on the page. Very unique and specific vision. And the whole point is, you don't need to have the answers before, because that's what you come to the coaching for. I also know what it's like to be on programs where there is an expectation that we're all just going to follow the same model as the coach. And I don't find that helpful, because many of us are just naturally a bit against the grain. We're always going to do things slightly differently our way. And when there is just one model and there's not enough emphasis put on finding what exactly you want to achieve, because it's being taught probably along the success model that coach has achieved, I just don't find it as effective, and I find it's a lot of hard work. And that's why I very specifically focus on your vision first. Another challenge that I know people face, or an objection that they face when they're thinking about taking on this kind of support, is, isn't this indulgent? I'm really busy. I've got a lot going on. Shouldn't I just wait till things calm down and then I can have the headspace for this stuff? And one of the best ways to stay stuck is to think that extra support and coaching and other resources helping you is indulgent. But just think about athletes and think about like top performers. None of them is standing there saying, I did this by myself. They've all got a team behind them. They've all got the best coaches that money can buy behind them. And that they know that if they want to get leveraged support, then they can't work in a vacuum, and neither should you. The other thing that people say is that I'm kind of fine. It's all, I'm doing fine, right? It's not like it's not a pain point. I'm not in constant pain, right? So it's not like I need nice to have. Is that a good enough reason to do this work and invest in this work? And what I say is yes, because again, going back to those athletes, the best in the world have coaches. They're already performing at the top level, but they still have coaches, because it's not about fixing what's broken. You want to take it further with more clarity, and we all have a finite amount of energy, and I want us to direct that in the critical path in the best possible way. And that's going to be so much easier when you're working with somebody who is really expert at doing that. And I say that, I talk very openly from my own personal experience as somebody who has done this stuff. But now I've just worked with so many visions that I've got a really rich bank of experiences and examples that really help. Often when we're stuck, we need ideas. We need different ways of thinking about things. And it's really nice when you get to hear lots of different successful examples, or things that have worked and things that perhaps haven't worked quite so well. Let me give you another example of this, because I know this one resonates. If you've ever done a talk, you've had to, create a keynote or some kind of other speech, or perhaps you've been putting together a report or a dissertation or something like that. You can sit there tweaking away at it and keep nailing it and working away. But if you give that to somebody else, if you present that to somebody else, or if you give it to somebody else to review, that's when you get the game-changing tweaks, right, in how it's going to work. Same goes for your goals, right? You can sit there tweaking away at it by yourself, but when you get that real outside perspective and one that is well-versed in what you're working with, that's when you get to move leaps and bounds rather than just chipping away. Personally, I have invested in a lot of coaching over the years, and some of it has been major and some of it has been more like a big group program. I've always gotten so much out of it. I've obviously well vetted the people that I have chosen to buy from. I've followed along, consumed a lot of what they have to share, and I feel that they're trusted. Often they will have done something similar to what I want to achieve, but I have never, even if it's not as ideal as I would like, or the way that I would deliver that work. I'm quite picky. I've designed a lot of learning now in my career. it might not be the ideal delivery, or, they may have not even got some of the training that I have, right? So even if it's subpar, I have always managed to get huge amounts out of it. And I know that I've moved much more quickly than I would have moved otherwise. When I then look back on that period, I'm always able to say, wow, there's such a clear path there of something that I move forward in that nobody is going to ask me for. No one's going to say to me, Maya, have you developed this aspect of your business yet? Have you spent time cultivating this part of your program? Have you done this? No one's going to do that for me. And likewise in your careers, there's no one there looking out for your big vision career. Yes, there are going to be interested parties, your immediate stakeholders, your line managers who care about your career, but are they going to be able to stand back and look at that big picture? I always remember when I think I was leaving KPMG, and I sat down with a guy who'd been a huge sponsor for me. He'd moved me over from PwC, and I'd always looked up to him hugely. And I said to him, you've worked with me for a long time now. I know you're a fan. I know you've supported me hugely. What do you see for me? What do you think I would be capable of, or something like that? And he looked at me and he kind of took a pause, took a deep breath, and he said, have you considered the civil service, Maya? And I was just like, are you kidding me? That's all you've got for me. You've basically just picked an alternative track for me from a handful of very well-trodden, very well-known options. And it would require starting from scratch, where I'm really happy with what I've built. I don't want to start from scratch. I shouldn't have to start from scratch. I've got a lot to build on. I've started at Goldman's. I've done a number of years of consulting. I've shown you that I can lead massive programs. And it just showed me that people that I really respected might not have the depth of understanding that I needed to be able to navigate my own squiggly career. So for a long time, I personally struggled to find the right mentors that really got it, that understood what I was about and also what was happening in the world that I could be part of. So the next bit that I want to talk about is, what does it actually look like to work with me? And I really recommend people start with the vision builder. It doesn't matter whether you're a founder, a CFO, or somebody making that transition from an amazing corporate career to something now that you want to do on your own terms. Having a clear, ambitious life work vision, and then the critical path that you build with me to make that real, is absolutely invaluable. I have worked with some amazing leaders. One of them, she told me she had a perfect 10-year plan already laid out. I said, do you want to still do the vision work? Like, I don't want to make you do it if you've literally done this exact piece of work before. She was up for it. And at the end of it, she said, oh my gosh, this was so different from the plan that I had for myself. It was so much more holistic. It was so much more exciting and ambitious. And you've really pushed me now to breathe some real excitement into what I thought I had as my plan. So I really encourage everybody to start there, because it stops you then focusing on the wrong things. And what the Vision Builder program is, it's about 5 to 7 hours of your time spread over maybe a month or so, or two. You get 5 to 7 hours of my best insights in short bite-sized videos. Even my clients that I work with in corporate, sometimes I will just give them access to this curriculum, because having seen hundreds of visions, I've seen all of the different things that can hold people back when they're creating their visions. And that's what those insights do. They kind of warm you up for the best possible vision building, because we're not here to create a vision board. We're here to say you've already had an incredible career built on many of your strengths. We need to take that and leverage that. That stuff is going to be pivotal in the next stage of your career. We're not going to put it aside. We're not starting from scratch. We are leveraging here. So you have 5 to 7 hours of self-paced work, and you have 2 hours of intensive time with me one-to-one. And of course, this is where I get to step in, somebody who has crafted my own visions over the years, but then also has experience of what has been successful for others as well. You know, what I've seen have been some of the pitfalls and where it can then kind of fall off a cliff. Now, I know that even that, which is meant to be your entry point into working with me, after that, what a lot of people do is they say they want quarterly or 6-monthly check-in sessions with me to keep them on track. And that's a lovely way then to have cultivated that relationship. And I love those long-term clients that I can then check in with, because we've done that deep foundational work. And now we are checking in and we're just holding that space for them to keep moving in the best possible way towards their vision. So that for me is, you want to dip your toe in, go and do Vision Builder. It's now called Vision Code, by the way. But then if for any reason even that feels like a commitment, and I do understand people can be a bit jaded when it comes to coaching, you might have had a bad experience, you might have bought something which actually wasn't that good or didn't make the shift in your life. So I've got literally my Vision Unblocked 3-day, for the price of a takeaway program for you. This is a 3-day program designed for my busiest high achievers. It's audio based with tiny actions, and the idea is that in your busiest week you can still get this done. And I've taken the 3 things that I see being the most critical to building successful visions and then actually going to achieve those visions, and I've put those through, and I've done it in a way that clears any blockages for people who are feeling a bit stuck with their vision. And the best bit is, because this is a self-serve program, but I just couldn't bear to leave people without some feedback loop. So I've got a custom GPT vision builder in there. So you get access to that on the 3rd day, and you get real feedback loops because I have some specific prompts. So it's super easy. Just go in there, press the prompts, and you can then start to take what's coming up for you and run with it and go further with it, so that you're not just acting in a vacuum. As a coach, I want people to have a feedback loop, and now we have the technology. And I had the first few people who've been through Vision Unblocked, they found that that was one of the most powerful elements once they'd laid the prior foundations. So once you've done Vision Unblocked or Vision Builder, I then have a couple of other programs. One is really focused on your leadership and your influence in the way that feels most authentic to you, but also gets the best results. And that's called the Unwritten Rules program, because I feel like inside organizations, or even for smaller companies, there are some people that just get it when it comes to leadership, and others can feel intimidated as if they'll never just get it, and that some aspects of leadership will never be available to them. I want to dispel all of that. I want to make it available to everyone, especially my very direct or introverted and very technically competent leaders who would be incredible, but they just need a little bit of help to make those rules work for them. And then the final one is around energetics. And this is all about how it's quite a layered program, but ultimately, how do you do all of this stuff? How do you work towards your vision, have the influence you want, build the kind of career that you want in a way that also allows you to design a really exciting life that you want to wake up to every day and be excited by? Because when I talk about ambition, I think sometimes what gets left is the life part. I think we can get really ambitious about our work at the expense of the rest of our lives, and I don't want that. I want us to be ambitious about the whole life. And of course, with the vision work sitting on top of that, those 2 other pillars make so much more sense. Because if I just start with working with somebody on the unwritten rules and their leadership style, but we don't know what that North Star is, we don't know what the point of it all is, it's so much harder to know which battles to pick, where to focus our energy, etc. So they all work beautifully together, and that's how I've created them. But the beauty is you can kind of take each one as you go as well, so that you're not having to feel like you're entering into some sort of a massive process from the start. You can take each one as it comes, experience the benefits, and then move forward. So I hope that this has given you a bit more to answer that question of, is this the moment to get support? You don't need it all figured out from the start, and you don't need to commit to a huge amount straight away. If you need to start micro, then you start with that tiny Vision Unblocked program. But if you want help deciding, just drop me a message. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have from this. And thank you for listening. I hope that this helps you get a little bit further. Of course, all the links to these different programs I've mentioned will be in the show notes. So I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye.